Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, How to Really Differentiate Your Recruitment Business. I'm Nivan, and I'd like to introduce you to our CEO, Porrick Berry. How are you, Porrick?
Hi, Nivan. Yeah, I'm great, thanks. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Glad to be here with you today. As promised in our introduction to this webinar, we're going to show you today how to really differentiate your recruitment business and get and stay ahead of your competition to achieve our TTI SI 92% retention rate. So, what we'll be looking at today is a method of better recruitment, a method that will add additional revenue streams by building stickiness with your clients so they keep coming back, spend more because you really add value and you do it all in less time. Now, I suppose the key secrets that we're going to be sharing with you are how to cut your briefing time in half, how to make the experience, this is really important, how to make the experience more engaging for your clients, how to offer them a comprehensive hiring system, and how, most important, I suppose, in fact, how to create long-lasting client relationships.
So before we start, we need to remember that recruitment is actually an investment that'll prove to impact company performance and profitability for better or worse.
Yeah, that's my slide up there. I put up there spinach and eat your veg.
Eat your greens. So the initial expense of hiring isn't actually the true cost. The real cost is revealed over time when the new employee either fades or flourishes in their role. It's a bit like our waistlines, Porrick. You are what you eat.
Mm-hmm.
How effective the recruitment turns out to be depends upon whether the hire is someone who is actually capable of reaching superior performance in the position, also on how long it will take the person to ramp up, and on the engagement level that results.
Absolutely.
By the way, it's also worth mentioning that using objective hiring criteria helps employers avoid costly mistakes that can lead to litigation.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe in this process, as you know, that we're going to share today. And I'm really passionate about it. I'm so passionate that I want to share with you a testimonial. You can see it there in front of you. A client, this is an exercise we did recently with a client, and he said to us that engaging us was the single best business decision he had ever made. Now, is that a testimonial or what? And the question I have to ask each and every one of you listening here is, how are we so different from the competition that he would say that? Do you think this client is going to go to our competitors? Do you think the client is going to come back to us for more? Do you think this client will refer us?
Did you know, Porrick, that at one point staff turnover dropped by 75% and revenue increased by 50% for one company?
Yeah, I know that. Yeah, it's amazing. And absolutely. I mean, at TTI, we're absolutely committed to provide you with the best tools on the market and the best training.
Yeah, so with that in mind, Porrick, we want to let everyone know that we will be able to download our manual at the end of the webinar.
Very good. What's this? The recruitment guide?
Upgrading your recruitment business, it's called.
Cool. Okay, the way I want to sort of position it, we're going to do this in two pieces. And the beginning and the end is going to be a case study. And in the middle, then we're going to talk about the actual process of the tools and techniques and how we do it. So just to start with the case study, this was a small to medium enterprise. Just a case study now, by the way, that gave us the testimonial I just read out there a few minutes ago. Small to medium enterprise, owner managed, just come out of the economic downturn, energy was low, and the CEO was probably considering exiting. And he said that this was going to be the most important decision that he would make this year, maybe ever. So the steps were very, very simple. We identified what the job actually was, like what it really was, by understanding the key accountabilities, what the deliverables were for the job, preparing a benchmark on a number of headings for that, coming up with a job posting. Then we went to a screening process. We ended up with 86 applicants. We screened them down using a top grading system on skills, experience, phone screening, and so on. Down to 10 applications, so we did a job challenge comparison. We compared the people to the job. We already identified what the job required, compared the people to that job. And on the basis of that, we interviewed 5 people, selected 2, and took them through a comprehensive interview process, and ultimately recruited 1. So that's the process that we're going to that I'm going to be talking about at the end of this in the case study. But now maybe just take you into what makes this process unique and effective.
Warwick, I know that you are very enthusiastic about this process and you really, really want this training to meet as many people, to reach as many people as possible so they can enjoy the benefits that we're already enjoying here. But tell us, what exactly is it about this process that makes it so unique and effective?
Yeah, thanks, Ivan. I want you to imagine for a moment that you have a client sitting in front of you, and imagine that you've brought a process to them that is achieving 92-94% over 4 years retention. What impact would that have on the client's business? What impact would that have on your relationship with your client? And then once the recruitment selection process happened, you have these people on board. Imagine being able to continue to work with that client, supporting him, using the tools and techniques that were developed in the actual recruitment selection process to do additional things, such as, for example, helping onboarding, succession planning, development planning, and so on, and adding an enormous amount of additional value. Can you imagine that scenario as a recruiter? Many recruiters can't, but can you imagine that? This is very powerful. It's a very simple process that a recruitment company can use to get stickiness and engage with their clients, so that their interaction with clients aren't one-off events. So the clients keep coming back for more and refer them. So they become an integral part, I suppose, of the client's team.
So, Pork, in essence, what you're actually talking about is the TTI DEAP DEEP model.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not saying that the recruiters are in the business of doing everything that happened to talent from cradle to grave. What I am suggesting is they need to keep this model in mind. So when they start a recruitment process with the client, they're thinking, hang on a second, how are we going to onboard this person? How are we going to develop this person? What about succession planning? How engaged will this person be? How will they manage performance? And that all that is built in at the very beginning of the recruitment process.
So, Pork, we often hear you talking about identifying the business problem that needs to be solved. So in this case, what exactly are the specific problems and how do we solve them?
Yeah, well, you can see I've up there, the number one I've up there on the slide is very simple, it's role clarity. I just say that the biggest problem that I experience when I look at this is that people don't really understand what the job requires. The client, the organisation has a picture in their mind, which is usually confused. Typically, there are a number of people involved in the process internally in the company. Typically, they all have a different view of what the job is. They can communicate this confused message to the recruiter, who then has to go away and do something with it. But can you imagine having agreed clarity, where everyone in the organisation is absolutely in agreement exactly what the role requires, in a way that can be measured, in a way that can be understood, and can communicate that absolutely clearly to the recruiter because they're part of the whole process. Then that really works, as opposed to the alternative, where this fuzziness and confusion just cascades down throughout the process. I mean, if the job could talk, what would it ask for? What would it say? It would explain precisely what is necessary to achieve superior performance. It would talk about the personal attributes that drive success. Yeah. It would talk about how to reward superior performance, the hard skills required, the education required, the background required, the experience required, the behaviours necessary to perform at a peak level, like intrinsic motivators, knowledge, and so on and so forth. And it's easy to do this. This is not something that's complicated. There's no rocket science here. I mean, using our benchmarking process, you can establish the key accountabilities. You can understand exactly what the job has to deliver. And how valuable is that, having that kind of absolute agreement between the recruitment company and the client, and indeed internally the client, about what the job really is, what the deliverables really are, what the profile of the ideal candidate would be, and how to measure the candidate gets the job in a way that actually makes some sort of sense. That's not just, as I'll talk about later on, not just praying. Mm-hmm. I suppose if you do that, then how easy is it, or how difficult is it to craft a brief or an ad, a communications piece that will actually attract the right kind of candidates? It all starts with role clarity. No role clarity, and role clarity in a way that you can actually define it, you can measure it, you can do something with it. Not some sort of waffly statement. Absolute role clarity in a way that can be benchmarked. Allows you a screening process. Once you start the selection process, you can start screening people based on your ideal candidate form that comes out of this, to the point where you have a short list of qualified candidates that you can actually do something with. Again, just the last comment to make on this. on this role clarity. The single most important thing is that you and your client, the client number one internally, and then you and the client are absolutely aligned, you're absolute congruence of what the role is, what you're trying to accomplish there, what the key accountability, the deliverables are in a way that can actually be measured.
Okay, so that's a really clear, solid foundation. What's the next problem, Porrick?
Yeah, well, okay, once you've got role clarity and you understand exactly what it is, the next problem then is the job match and retention. Let me explain what I mean. You see the picture of the slide where I talked about praying there a minute ago. What do you think this guy's doing? He's there recruiting, he's got a pile of files at his desk, but he's saying a prayer quite clearly. I mean, it's a great picture, isn't it? And do you know why he's saying a prayer? Because he hasn't got a clue if the person opposite him at the desk is the right candidate or not. So why? Because he doesn't have the information necessary. That's the key. They don't have the information necessary to make an informed decision. I mean, do you know the cost of bad hire, getting it wrongly bad? And add to that the ramifications of poor performance on the team, of prospective sales and customer retention. It's quite alarming. And in an SME, by the way, where the key people are a small number, the impact can be even greater.
Yes, I'm aware of this, Porrick. Harvard Business Review wrote an article in 2009, and they reasoned that many companies fail to hire and retain the best talent because without an effective recruitment process in place, they inadvertently treat the hiring situations like an emergency. And you can only imagine as a result, about 1/3 of promising new hires depart within the first 3 years.
Absolutely. I mean, the absence of a disciplined process, which is a scientific disciplined process, recruiting is inconsistent. It relies on gut instinct. And we all know that gut instinct is influenced, is biased. And interview performance can be a huge bias, education can be a huge bias, the way the person dresses can be a huge bias. So you really need a process that gets you away from that.
That article was the definitive guide to recruiting in good times and bad. And in that article, the HBR authors noted that far too many companies rely on subjective personal experience or indeed false assumptions. So making relevant work experience the number one reason for hiring. But they fail to assess a person's ability to collaborate on teams. For example, only 1 in 10 companies factor in a drive for continuous learning.
Which of course is critical.
Yeah, critical for adaptability. And TTI's research identified that years ago.
Yeah, and we have to recognise that the breakneck speed that technology is advancing and learning, people have to be learning all the time. The days of getting your degree and getting a job are gone. People who aren't interested in continuous learning won't survive. So you have to hire people who are into continuous learning. It's interesting, as opposed to the confidence you'd have from having a 92 to 94% success rate that TTI have had 4 years in a row in benchmark recruitment. The value is huge. I mean, the single most important thing the recruitment company can do is not get it wrong. It's not necessarily about getting a stellar performer. It's about not getting a poor performer. It's about getting people who can actually have superior performance in the role, but not making a mistake. And I mean, if you do this, the client will see, the client will understand it, and the client will support you in it.
Absolutely. So, Porrick, you talked about additional revenue streams before and how to gain, real stickiness with a client. So, can you tell us specifically what this means?
Yeah, okay, well, take retention. Retention comes from engagement. And engagement comes from hiring a person who matches the job, who's onboarded properly, with a development plan in place, that has a succession plan in place, so they see a career progression. I mean, if you think about the millennials, we talk a lot about millennials nowadays, what are they looking for? I mean, right now, what are they looking for? They're looking for a sense of purpose. They're saying, what I'm doing is meaningful. They want to see if they're actually playing to their strengths, and what they're doing is all right. They're creating value because they're playing to their strengths and their interests. They want to know that they can see a clear career progression. That's what they want, and you have it from a process like this. And that, again, is a huge value add for a company. I mean, recruitment experts want to be able to go to a company, to a CEO or HR director, and say, we can recruit the right people for you, people who will be engaged, who stay in the company, will add value, won't go in 6 months. They like what they do. They will learn interesting things. They'll feel they're going somewhere, so they're going to stay with you. They're going to be engaged, and they'll have high retention. And so, as you can probably see, this is a very sticky process. I mean, if you develop that for a client and you get people in there like that for a client and use these tools and techniques, the client's not going to walk away from this. The client's going to stick with you. And once these tools and techniques are embedded in the company, the client will continue to use these tools, continue to use the work the recruitment person has done to onboard and develop the chosen candidate. And you'd imagine for succession planning, for all sorts of other development, internal recruitment, that the client will come back to you. Why would they go somewhere else? You have all the tools, you have the techniques, you have the process embedded in the organisation. So, I mean, again, just where would they go? Why would they leave you? There's no reason why they would. I mean, you have to imagine, again, you have to just go to and imagine working with a client and saying to a client, I'm going to hire superior performers for you. I'm going to increase the retention of these superior performers. I'm going to reduce the turnover expense. I'm going to help you I'll give you the wherewithal to put a professional development plan in place for each one of these people and cultivate the next wave, succession planning, cultivate the next wave of leaders and so on. I'm going to help you make high performance the norm of your organisation and ensure that everyone's focused on achieving the goals of the strategic plan. That's really what you have to be promising your client to be an effective recruiter in today's world. Yeah. It's not just a question of getting somebody, sticking them in the job. That's not what people want anymore.
Yeah. Porrick, did you know that Watson Wyatt Worldwide suggests that companies with highly engaged employees were 200% more profitable?
Wow.
Yeah. Gallup meta-analysis results suggest that when companies select the top 20% most talented candidates for a role, they frequently realize a 10% increase in production.
Wow.
20% increase in sales, 30% increase in profitability, 10% decrease in turnover, which is so important, and a 25% decrease in unscheduled
That's incredible,
absences.
isn't it?
It's amazing. So have I got it right, Porrick, that the outcomes for the recruitment company using this process will be absolute agreement around the screening process and the candidates you end up with, simplicity crafting ads and communication pieces, client recruitment, company congruence and agreement, additional revenue, stickiness, and referrals.
You got it. You got it in one. Yeah, well done. You got it in one.
Porrick, I'm hoping the people that have been listening are really excited about this process and absolutely eager to jump into the training. And just to remind everyone that there is a manual to go along with this process. So if you feel you've missed anything during the training, you can download it at the end of the webinar. Can you start by walking us through the steps that our recruitment consultant would take using the TTI process?
Yeah, just make one comment. I've seen that guide. You put a lot of work putting together, Nivan. It's a great guide. I really encourage you to download it. You're going to find it invaluable. It takes all the stuff we're talking about today and expands it and elaborates on it. Gives you all the detail behind it. Clearly, we're going to go through this webinar pretty briefly. And by the way, there's also an option, just so you know this, there's an option if you want to have a chat with me. So you can have a one-on-one conversation with me to answer any of your questions. And you'll also see that as an option. Okay, so moving on. Okay, sure. I mean, before I go into this, let me just, process proper. Let me just talk about three big obstacles that we've seen to effective role clarity. If we accept the role clarity is where we start. And there are time-removing bias and complete buy-in. Let me tell you what I mean by that. It's very, very hard to get people to invest the time in defining what a role is. If you have, particularly if you're recruiting at a senior level and you want to get 3 or 4 or 5 key people in an organization who have an input into that role, you want to get them to sit down and put an hour or 2 or 3 into defining the role. It's almost impossible. Get them together in one place at one time to that kind of type of almost possible. Not that they don't want to do it, they just don't have the time. That's the first thing. The second thing is removing bias. No matter how capable they are, no matter how aware they are, the truth of the matter is everybody's biased. And you don't know your own bias. If you knew your own bias, you wouldn't be biased. I mean, you wouldn't know, if you knew your prejudice, you wouldn't be prejudiced. You deal with it. And the third is complete buy-in. Because people you really must get the key people to absolutely agree what the role is. And say, this is it. We've articulated it in English in a way that can be measured. We understand it absolutely. That is the role, and we're completely committed to that role. It's interesting. There was a piece of research done years ago on CEOs leaving companies, and they found the vast majority were leaving because of stress. And when they asked them what the stress was, it was because their roles weren't clearly defined. I.e., like the CEO was reporting to the board, and there'd be half a dozen different people on the board who all had different ideas about what the job was. So this thing of really getting complete buy-in agreement is very, very important. Okay, and this process, just for the avoidance of this process we're suggesting, removes all of these. So let me just run through very, very quickly what the process is. One, we can see I have 8 points here. Obviously there's a lot more to it, but it's me trying to keep it tight, okay? Identify the subject matter experts, the people who understand the role, who are critical to the role. 2, with those people, define the key accountabilities. What is a job really responsible for? Review, edit, and rank them. 3, from that, create a job benchmark and review, edit, and rank that with these subject matter experts. 4, prepare an ideal candidate form. What aptitude does the ideal candidate look like? 5, from all of that information, your key accountabilities and your benchmark and your ideal candidate form, prepare the appropriate communications piece, be an advert or a brief or whatever it is. 6, assess individuals and compare the benchmark. So as you start getting candidates in, assess them and compare them to the benchmark. 7, interview and select the key candidates. And then 8, onboard whoever you select, put a development plan in place, a performance plan in place, and so on and so forth. So that's the total process as we outline it. So maybe I'll just start if you want, and I'll just run through a little bit more detail. Yeah?
Great, yeah.
Okay, so let's start with step 1. Identify 3 to 5 subject matter experts in the client organization. These are people who understand the role intimately and or have a stake in the role. So it could be an incumbent of the role, the boss of the role, somebody who works with the role, or it could indeed be somebody from outside the organization who understands that role very, very well but isn't part of the team. That's step 1. Step 2 is with these people, just send them out an email. So you agree who they are, you brief them on what the process is. So we're doing a benchmark, we're trying to identify what the key accountabilities are for the following role, and you send them out these questions. And you give them a week. So you say, why does this position exist? What are the key responsibilities? What are the key results expected of this position? What qualities, skills, and knowledge are required, and how this position interfaces with us? So you send that email out and say, please fill in these questions and send them back to me.
Okay. Support, just for everyone listening at home, how long does this step usually take?
Yeah, let me explain why we do it this way first, and then I'll explain how long. Again, get back this time thing. When you try and get people together to do stuff, it's very, very difficult to do this, and to get them to invest the kind of time that's required. But when you send this out to people like this, we give them a week, including a weekend, to complete the exercise. And what you find is over that week, they'll spend 10 minutes here and 50 minutes here and 20 minutes here, and they'll actually spend a few hours on this without knowing it. And they'll have the time to reflect and so on and so forth, and update their thoughts and really bring something of value to it. So when they actually email you back a week later, and that's why you need the weekend, give them a chance to reflect over the weekend. When they email you back a week later, then they have something of real quality that they're reading back. Yeah. So again, instead of trying to get them together for 2 or 3 hours or even 1 or 2 hours, you actually get that, but over a week. And so it's a really good way to do it in our experience. That's the way we like to do it. Once you actually email that out and the response is coming back in, so what you do is you create the key accountability. So let's say, for example, you have 5 subject matter experts on their team, 5 people internally who are looking at this job, and you send them 5 questions. Well, theoretically, you've got 25 paragraphs. They come back into you and you have 25 paragraphs in front of you, and then your job's a wordsmithing job. You look at those 25 paragraphs and you craft those into 5 key accountabilities. Usually this takes about an hour. That's been my experience, about an hour. It's my first real time input. When I do this, so my first real effort is here, crafting this. And once you've done it a few times, you get very, very good at this crafty exercise. So you craft them into this, and then once you've done, you send them back out to people and you say, okay, what do you think, guys? Do these make sense for you? Ask them for some input and typically a couple of emails back from the subject matter experts on this. So for example, I'm just going to pop up a slide for you here. There it is. So here's an example. Now we did this on Excel spreadsheet, so don't mind the actual format. But the piece I want to show you is this piece here. See that bit there in the middle called key accountabilities. The key accountability statement. So we got all this feedback to the questions down here. And in fact, that went about, whatever it was, 20 or 30 or 40 lines. And we just categorized them, and then we grouped them all together, ranked them by category here, and said, okay, what is the, we've got this one, strategic thinking and planning, another one, demonstrating leadership, another one, business management, and so on. And when we them all done like this, I sent this back out in a nice format to the client. I put out a little form like this, so they could actually look at it, they could see it, they can understand it, and again, and got whatever feedback I wanted to get from it. And so that's sort of an important aspect to it. Now, once you've done that, I then try to get people online. So remember, so far I've invested about an hour of my time. People get invested anything from an hour to 2 or 3 hours over the week, but without being aware of it. We have all the key accountability statements drafted up. They all have copies of them. And now I get everybody together and we do the ranking exercise. So we go back and say, okay, of those 5, are we all happy with them? And everybody says, yeah, we make a few tweets. And if not, we say, okay, if I had to drop one, which would I drop? And we rank that number 5. We work way up to number 1. And we've all those done. Let's say, how much of our time do we spend on each one? So in this job, how much of that job's time we spend on each one? And we give them a percentage allocation. And this is important because they may not spend as much time on the number 1 priority, the number 1 accountability, as the number 5. Because it just might be the nature of the job. So it's important from a behavioural perspective in terms of what behaviours people require to understand where they spend most of their time. So you do that exercise, and then when you have that in hand, that takes about 15 minutes typically. Okay. And when you have that in hand, you then say to everybody, okay, you have everybody online, on Webinar Jam or on GoToMeeting or on Skype or whatever it is. You have everybody online, say, okay, let's do the benchmark. And the benchmark is a really, really simple exercise. It can't get simpler. And what you do is, you see there on this slide, and you have two graphics there. Mm-hmm. The first one is the question. So for example, we're looking at competencies in this particular case. And you go along for each competence. The first one says appreciating others. So in case of appreciating others, you say, is this a primary skill that's really important in the job, a situational skill, or non-essential? Yeah. And you click on 1, 2, or 3. You go through the exercise, you do the 25 competencies on that basis. And the definition for each one as you go through it. And then what you get is a little graphic over here on the right-hand side. And you get all the competencies, 1 to 25 ranked, depending on the way you score them. And then you have to drag them over here into the box. You drag them over and say the primary or secondary, because you'll always find you have more primaries than you have boxes. And then and each time you mouse over each one of these, in fact, it shows you, give you definitions. You can debate online there. You're all talking online, and you can debate which one comes first, which one comes second. You move them around, you get agreement. You end up with 1 to 25. You really focus on the top 7, really. But you rank them 1 to 25, and everything gets really clear. Yeah, that's the most important. You have the debate there and then. And you do that for all the various sciences. I mean, the whole exercise takes about, by the way, it takes about 45 minutes. So with the 15 minutes at the beginning to do the 15 minutes to do the key accountabilities, and then about 45 minutes to do the benchmark itself. And the benchmark is in a number of areas. So for example, behavior. So here we have behaviors. And you can see here this a job profile, and here it's crystal clear. I mean, if you look at this profile, for example, Eva, what do you think this job should and should not be doing?
Well, I think this person clearly is not going to be sitting at a desk crunching numbers for it.
For sure. I mean, this is an out and about type of person. Doing what, you think?
I'd say sales type of a role.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this is
driving.
Yeah, you can see here they're out there driving, optimistic, but they're moving quickly. They're not big into detail. Yeah. It's an out there. Somebody driving something like in sales or business development, or maybe an entrepreneur. So they're driving something forward for sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And it's a good tool.
Oh, it's a great tool.
But it's not the only tool, is it?
No. So, like the doctor, as we say, Pork, this is an X-ray. We need the rest of the tests. So we need the blood test, the MRI, and the CAT scan. Yeah, for example. So here's the blood test. I mean, if the slide we looked at a moment ago, behaviours is how you do what you do and how you communicate and like to be communicated with. The one we're looking at now is why you do what you do. So these are driving forces. So it's the energy from within that drives behaviour. And because they indicate what a person cares most and least about, they describe why the individuals act the way they do. So, if you wish, revealing the inner motivation of their behaviour. Okay. So, with knowledge of which of these driving forces the job satisfies, each employee can be matched to a job that matches their inner drive.
That's it.
Yeah. So, this component of the process assures that the person's a match to a job that they're most likely to embrace and really excel at.
And as a consequence, be engaged.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, when a person clearly demonstrates a passion for work, it's because the motivators are well matched. And again, and as a consequence, the more engaged they'll be, the more productive they'll be, the more they'll enjoy it. What's the other thing? The man who loves his work will never work another day. So what we're trying to accomplish here is find that kind of match. I mean, driving force are the powerful underlying source of a person's energy to perform on the job. And this, again, if you look at this person's profile, they're clearly a bottom line person. Look at here, we have high resourceful. It's all about return on investment. Yeah. High commanding, all about doing it their way and taking control of their own destiny and being recognised. Intentional, working with individuals who can help them. Receptive, open to new ideas, and so on and so forth. So again, it fits in very, very well with behavioural profile we looked at earlier. That kind of outgoing person who likes to work a certain way, high energy, in your face a little bit, but also bottom line focus and so on. Well, here's another one. So let's see, does this fit in? And this is competencies.
Yeah. So tell us about competencies for it. It's another tool that we can use in the process.
Yeah, absolutely. And here, this is what, if the first tool was how you like to do things and how you like to communicate and be communicated with, and the second was why you do what you do, what drives you, what your hidden motivators are. This is what you've been recognized for. And again, if you look at this individual here, you can see that self-starting, flexibility, influencing other time, priority management. So there's a certain kind of person. Yeah. Again, it fits in very well with the profile we talked about earlier. Yeah. And this is the person self-scoring. If they were completed, but in this particular job, we're scoring the job here. After this, what the job requires a self-starting person who's flexible, influencing other time, priority, employee development, coaching, goal orientation, and so on. Yeah. And interestingly, these competencies, it's not rocket science. You don't have to start going through some painstaking, excruciating process to smooth out with trick interview questions what the competencies are. It's a very, very simple process. And if you do it properly, you can, in the interview process with a candidate, if you have this benchmark done this way, you can actually focus particular questions on this with the candidate to identify whether or not they have these skills. And here is the last one that I'm going to talk about here, Acumen Capacity Index. So we've talked about how you like to do things, communicate and be communicated with. We've talked about why you do what you do, what drives you. We've talked about what you've been recognized for. And here's what you've got potential for. So this fourth side, Acumen Capacity Index, ACI, it gives an indicator of how astutely a person analyzes and interprets experience and situations unfold. So, it illuminates how they understand situations and their capacity as a consequence for meeting challenges in business. It can reveal skills, indeed, that the person possesses and may not have been utilised historically and may not even be aware that they possess. So by revealing what they can potentially do, Acumen indicators help match the person to the job so they can reach superior performance at position.
Okay. So not only can we identify a person's competencies, what they actually have been recognised for, but so you're talking, in addition, we can also recognise their potential.
Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. And then you can end up with a job like this defined. I've just got 3 of them up here, how a job can be clearly defined. So in terms of competencies, in terms of motivators, in terms of behaviours, and indeed in terms of acumen, their potential. And from that job benchmark, interview questions can be generated automatically by the system. We generate questions around the various areas that you want to focus on and measure. So, again, just one quick comment about this slide here for you. From all of that, so you now have the key accountability exercise done and ranked and time allocated, and you now have done a benchmark that clearly tells you the how, why, what, and potential of the job. And from that, you can construct this. An ideal candidate form. You can take all these tools and you can end up with a form like this. Okay.
So that looks like a very, very comprehensive profile of the role for it.
Yeah, it is, absolutely.
Yeah.
Very comprehensive profile. And again, and by documenting it this way, you can objectively put down on a sheet of paper what the job requires and use it right throughout the process. And the ideal candidate form doesn't just relate to the things that we've talked about here that we're measuring. It goes back to key accountabilities and indeed the things that we've measured, but also things like hard skills, education, experience, and so on and so forth. And you end up with this very, very clear profile that everybody's engaged with. Everybody, that's it. That's what the ideal. If this is what the job requires, that's what the ideal candidate looks like. Very, very clear. Very, very simple. And again, removes all the ambiguity, all the lack of agreement, and so on. So using this, again, I want you to imagine that you have this, you've done this exercise, so now where are you? We now clearly understand the job, we now have it clear with the key accountabilities, we have the benchmark under the 4 headings, we have the ideal candidate form. We're now in a position to go and craft an ad or a communications piece. And it's really simple, we just lift the information directly from the stuff that we've done and craft this ad. Very, very simple, very straightforward.
And of course, for it, because it's been so clear from the very beginning, it really should only attract a candidate that is really the right match.
Absolutely. And we use a top grading approach, so we do, to whittle the list down. Okay. So we use this ideal candidate form. I'll talk about this in a minute, so I will. We'll use ideal candidate form to actually whittle out people and start a selection process.
And just to say to everyone out there, we are moving quickly here. We want to make the most of the time, but there will be a full download available towards the end of this webinar. So watch out for that.
Yeah, cool. Okay, and that leads us right into this. So now we're in the position where we can assess individuals, and there's different ways of assessing them and comparing to jobs. We've done the the benchmark. We've got the key count, we've done the benchmark, we've done the ideal candidate form, we've prepared our ad or our communication piece, we put it out there at the marketplace, and we have people contacting us. So we have CVs coming in, we have contacts coming in. And we want to compare them. We whittle them down. We use a top grading type of approach to whittle them down using the ideal candidate form. And we end up with a number of candidates. So we think maybe, 5, 10, whatever candidates. And what we do then is very simple. We're in a position to assess them and compare them to the benchmark on an individual basis, which is what this slide is showing you. Or indeed here as a group, we can actually compare them to each other and to the role I suppose just a way you can actually compare 4 or 5 individuals like that to the job, but you can also compare the individuals to each other. So just go back up again and look at this for a moment, or you can compare them here directly to the job, just one individual. And when we get down to a very small list, a short list of candidates, we tend to use this profile. You can see over here on the left, you have a comparison between the job and the individual, and where the population falls. And over here is sort of a summary of all the various benchmarking tools that you're using in this. And again, I just want to make the point, guys, that not only is the guide there, but I am available, the option is there to actually talk to me at the end of this exercise if you need further input.
Well, there's actually the opportunity to have a one-to-one Skype or phone call with you to go through all of this, because we are aware that we're rushing through. We don't want anyone to lose the value.
Yeah, we just want you to get a sense of the whole thing here, and we're happy to sit down and say one-on-one on Skype or the phone and take it through in more detail.
Great.
But anyway, the bottom line, of course, is we don't stop there, do we? I mean, what we're proposing to here is that not only have you approached it that takes to the point of actually comparing people and recruiting people, but once you've recruited them, there's more stuff you can do with your clients to move forward. So when you've hired the right candidates, use the exact same information, all the tools that are there that you've used already. You use those to onboard somebody, to do a development plan for them, to do a triad debriefing where you compare them to the person they're going to be working with, you debrief them, compare reports, to do a performance plan, and so on. So the whole series of steps that you can take, if you wish, to use the tools to create more value for the client, where they can see, hang on, so we did all of that in the recruitment process, and now we can actually onboard the person, debrief them, compare them to other people they're going to be working with from a communications perspective and so on, help them put a development plan in place, and even start doing succession planning and so on and so forth. So I think the best way probably to explain this actually, Ivan, is to go back to the case study and talk about how it looked. And I just want to say to you here, guys, that I'm popping up here for you the offer that again for the guide, so you can actually just click on it and complete it, so that you get your your guide.
Yeah, I think it's important to say here to everyone that these tools, it's not difficult to add on all these extra options that you're talking about, because really once you've gathered the information.
That's a really good point. Okay, I'm glad you said that. Let me just take that point you just add to it. You've done all the work. So you've gone through this whole process. It's a very simple process. It's only taking maybe 2 or 3 hours of your time, and you've gone through this whole process. And you're now at the point where people are interviewing and selecting a candidate. All that work can be used now. It's not wasted. All those tools can be used to onboard, to debrief people, to help people with communications, to do development planning, all the performance management, all the things we talked about. All this work has been done, and the client sees all this extra value coming from you. And in fact, the client can engage with you and have you help them actually do that. And the most simple example I can think of is succession planning. Why wouldn't they say, okay, we've recruited this person now, the next role for him in 12, 24, 6 months' time is this. Let's do it. Let's now benchmark that role just like we did the other one, and compare him to that, so we can do a development plan to get in there. And actually, that would be right into the case study. Let's just talk about the case study, because this really shows Ivan how it works. So what we did was we did the key accountabilities, as I just explained to you. We did the benchmark, and we did the ideal candidate form. And from that, we crafted this ad for a sales director. And we ended up with this lovely ad talking about this exciting opportunity. And all this text we lifted directly from these documents that we'd actually prepared. The key accountability was crystal clear. And in fact, the feedback we got from candidates when we were interviewing was how clear and unambiguous the ads was, and how it resonated with them. So clearly we were communicating with the people we wanted to be communicating with.
Yeah.
As you can see, the key accountabilities, the ideal person, and the experience we're looking for, and the salary and benefits that we were looking for. So you get a really simple, profile. And what happened then was, Nivan, we put that ad up. We got our 86 candidates responses to the ad. Yeah, it was pretty phenomenal.
Yeah.
We culled that down to about less than 30 straight away, just based on hard skills and educational things, that particular things. And then we looked at 30 in great detail, and we culled that 30 down to 10 people. And that 10 people, we then culled down to 5. And we did this job talent comparison report. And we compared the key candidates we had. I've actually taken, see there normally the names will be here on it. I've actually taken them out for obvious reasons, because this was actually this case study. We ended up with our candidates. We compared the candidates to the role, what it required, and to each other. And it made it really simple for us to identify, and as we went through the interview process, to identify people's strengths and weaknesses and what we wanted to do with them.
Okay, so this is the gap report we're looking at now, Pork.
Yeah.
You want to end up being able to compare a candidate to a job. So the gap between the person and the job is the blue dot.
And the hula hoop, that's it. So if you look at the basketball hoop there, Nivan, that white basketball hoop, that's actually the job, and the blue dot is the individual. Okay. So you get a gap report, and that's looking at an individual. The previous slide here, we were looking at a number of people against the job. Here we're looking at an individual against the job. It's just more detail, if you wish.
Yeah.
And it's where you want to end up. I mean, for example, in our particular case, we did the job talent comparison report for this one. We did this first with the 5 candidates. We interviewed the 5 candidates. We had interview questions coming out of this one. We interviewed the 5 candidates. We culled it down to 2. We did this gap report. In fact, we did a full coaching report, but that doesn't matter. We did this gap report on them, and had these interview questions. And these are actual interview questions from that particular role. And so we weren't praying. We weren't there with like that poor guy. Remember back when the earlier slides, his hands together praying. We had real information. We knew exactly what we were looking for in the job. Real interview questions. And it was very easy. We went through a comprehensive process. We had a lot of the team interview this person in the half-hour or the half-day interviews that we actually ultimately conducted with each one of them. And everybody had all this information. They could see the profile of the individual. They had all the interview questions. We knew exactly what the strengths and weaknesses were, what we wanted to pinpoint, and so on.
So you knew what you were looking for. The questions help you to identify the exact information.
Exactly. That's exact information. There was no confusion about what we were looking for here. And interesting enough, then once we actually selected the candidate, here are the profiles of the 2 candidates. You can see them there, the CEO and the sales director. And we were able to do a debrief and compare the 2 reports. They could see how they'd work together. They could see what would and would not work.
Yeah.
You can see there very clearly. And
so you're setting them up there for
success.
High performing communication.
That's it.
Everything.
Yeah. And we focused quite a lot actually on what wouldn't work.
Okay.
Where there was conflict, what wouldn't work. Where they need to be careful, where they were both strong, where they were both weak, and both of them. So we did the 2 people together. I actually did this one. I actually did it with the 2 candidates. We spent maybe about 2 or 3 hours going through all this, so they got off to a really strong start.
So very intentional onboarding.
Very intentional onboarding.
Yeah,
very intentional. And then, of course, we took them straight, and there is the coaching report, all the text is there. There's the graphics. We produced a coaching report for the sales director, and immediately started coaching, developing this individual into the role that they were in, and I should make the point, because this person was recruited for the sales director role, but also in 12-24 months' time to become the CEO. We did the gap analysis against the benchmark we'd done the CEO role, and did a comprehensive professional development plan for this individual. And this is actually an extract from the development plan around behaviours, motivators, competencies, acumen, and other skills that are required to be developed. So this person could actually move into this leadership role. And on the basis of that, we put a program in place on the Complete Leader program, which we actually are running for the company to help the next level leadership team be ready to move up and take the next step. And I suppose the last element of that was, of course, coming directly out of that professional development plan, we put a performance management system in place. Again, this a system that just lives directly from the key accountabilities, from the development plan, and from hard metrics. I didn't make a point here. I want to make one point about the key accountabilities. It's really, really important to do them that you have a hard metric on each one of them. It's not enough to have waffly statements. These have to be very, very clear statements of intent, and beside them must be a metric. We use the analogy that somebody should be able to write their own check. I.e., anybody in a role should know that they're absolutely performing or they're not performing. Yeah. There should be no ambiguity about it. So we have very, very hard metrics on all these key accountabilities, so we can have a very, very clear performance management. And the other comment I'd make about performance management is that the performance management is about improving performance. Yeah. A lot of people look at performance management as, I'm not sure what they look at that, some sort of performance review that could just pulled out of fresh air, is my opinion of view. This is not that. This looked at all the areas we measured, and then we measured the person's performance against it. How are they doing against that development plan? So it really is about improving performance, not about measuring and beating somebody up, but really help them step up to the plate and improve their performance. So you can see here it's pretty comprehensive.
It's incredibly comprehensive, very precise, and it's a scientific process.
It is, and the whole purpose of it is to help you build stickiness, to help you build engagement with your clients, to help you find new revenue streams with clients, to differentiate your business. So when you do something like this with a client, you can absolutely differentiate your business. We've worked with somebody who's doubled their business, working with the existing client base, build the additional revenue streams, build stickiness, find a better service, add additional value, do it all needs your way. Okay. And that's what this is really all about.
So that was great, Paul. It was really interesting. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I suppose the next step is that we would really love to hear from people who want to go ahead and try this process. You know, we have a wealth of information, as you can hear, in the form of Porrick and our case studies. And so we're really happy to walk people through all the steps.
Absolutely.
And so, Porrick, I suppose as we're ending the webinar, what insights would you like to leave our listeners today?
Yeah, okay, thanks, Stephen. Yeah, thoughts I'd like to leave you with, guys, are the recruitment business is like every business. In the good old days, recruitment was like sales. It's about you get the opportunity, you find a person, you match them up as quickly as possible, whatever way possible, you got your fee and you moved on. And I know a lot of people went deeper than that and did better jobs than that, but a lot of people didn't. But the truth of the matter is, recruitment has been commoditized now, like every other business is becoming a commodity. And companies can access CVs through LinkedIn and many other portals. And so the recruitment person really has to differentiate, but they really have to add additional value. And so I suppose, if I was leaving it, my takeaway, if I want to leave one thing, if you want to differentiate, you must add value. You have to demonstrate how you're adding value, by the way. It's not enough to say you're adding, but you have to demonstrate it. And you do this by using science, not by guessing. By ending up with candidates who actually match the role, like clearly match the role, by giving companies the tools to actually onboard these people effectively. To put development plans in place and performance plans in place that really get people engaged, that really get people performing. The engaged candidates stay. This is the value you're adding. You find high performance people who stay. If you don't see this, and the recruitment companies don't see this, they won't be in recruitment long. This is the future, and recruitment companies must get on board with the future and own it and make it their own. So what I'm saying is companies don't want to do it themselves. They want recruitment companies to do this for them, but they want recruitment companies who are adding value. So if you really want to differentiate yourself, this is the way to do it. Look at value add, and the value add is about hiring high performance people who match the real needs of the company, who are engaged, who stay in the job, and this is how you do it.
Yes.
Yeah, so.
Thank you, and thanks everyone for listening.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys, and thanks, Stephen. And again, my closing comments, don't forget to download the guide. It's there, and again, and contact us if you want. We're happy to talk to you and give you whatever support we can and show you maybe in greater detail how to use all these tools. Thanks.